My name's Dave Voits. I'm a former naval officer. I'm a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. I have a degree in control systems engineering. I worked in electronics warfare and nuclear engineering. And while I was in the service, I found out there is an ongoing, non-consensual human experiment that's testing a human-machine interface weapon. So I'm walking across the country. I started out in the Atlantic coast in a place called Lewes, Delaware. And I walked here to Omaling, Illinois. I'm heading west on U.S. Highway 50 towards California. I've tried to talk to all the newspapers and radio stations along the way to try to raise awareness, and I'm passing out brochures and business cards to folks to raise awareness for this group of human subjects that are seeking assistance. You can reach me at my name, David Voits, last name spelled B-O-I-G-T-S, on Facebook. Also, the Facebook page, TI in America Cross Country Walk, GoFundMe page, TI in America Cross Country Walk, and I do tweet on Twitter at David Voits, or at David Voits 1911.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. It's all about the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts. Now, those of us who have been in this truth movement for a long time have learned about a lot of things. Some at first we thought, no, that can't be true. And then we find out it is. And then we go on to search other things. And that's why we have this huge listenership to the Power Hour, full of people who question just about everything. And why? Because we've been lied to too many times. Joining us today is David Voits. He is a former naval officer, graduate of the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. He earned a degree in control systems engineering. He worked as a surface warfare officer in electronic warfare and nuclear engineering jobs. And while in the service, David learned of an ongoing non-consensual human experiment testing a human-machine interface weapon. The program is testing technology similar to those used in modern prosthetics. A similar program was revealed in the 70s when the government agency was caught dosing unsuspecting citizens with LSD. We're going to be talking to him about a number of experiments, but also the main issue of our program today is the harassment, the non-consensual testing on people of electronic harassment. David Voits, thank you so very much for joining us on the Power Hour today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
You have done an amazing thing, number one. I mean, just going as an enlisted man into the Navy and then been chosen to go to the Naval Academy. That right there says you're a pretty smart guy. You're doing a lot of things right during that time. And then you got your degree in control systems engineering, and you were in the military. How many years, David?
Just about 14.
14 years. You joined after the Gulf War, so you didn't get impacted by that, which we're glad of. But you've been looking at a lot of the experiments that we covered in Beyond Treason, and I'm glad to talk to you about it today. But the reason we have you here today is because you're doing a public outreach campaign. You're walking across the country to tell people about a huge problem. What is that problem, David?
Like you mentioned there's an ongoing non-consensual human experiment that's testing a human-machine interface weapon. So back in the 60s, there was the MK Ultra program that a lot of people started talking about that, and they were dismissed. And then eventually in the 70s, it was revealed during the Church Committee and the Vice President Rockefeller's commission that there was this MK Ultra program, and they came back in 1977 and did a full dressing down in front of a joint committee and revealed that, they had found these 20,000 documents through a Freedom of Information Act request. And during the hearing, they had said that the program had stopped, and it was kind of a half-truth. I think they just stopped the chemical portion where they were testing LSD and I think it was like mescaline and scopolamine and these sorts of drugs that'd be useful in spycraft. But the project that continued was the electromagnetic portion of the, it continued under different budgets and different agencies. And it's kind of been set up so that there's no Freedom of Information Act request that's going to reach it. It's, structured under contractors and kind of what they call a cutout, which is an intermediary to move funds into a project. And so we're just, like I said, I got a degree in control systems engineering, and where we're at with the technology, with the modern computers, the ability to do brain decoding. Now, we don't know what the electrical wiring diagram for the human brain is, but with strong algorithms and a given input, you can look at the response of the various brain waves and do brain decoding. So if someone wanted to figure out how that's done, you can go to YouTube and search. Jack Gallant has a neuroscience lab in Berkeley, California, and in about 20 minutes, if you search Jack Gallant, functional MRI, mind reading, he'll tell you how he does that with a statistical method and the functional MRI machine. And so this is a weapon that is it's bidirectional, it reads, and it also provides input. And so, if, the public, the unsuspecting public has, no idea where the, technology is, the folks that are making these complaints are just, dismissed. Mm-hmm. And so, I did the normal outreach, and I told people around me, what I knew about this, and that, hey, this is, we have a Bill of Rights and Hippocratic Oath, and we're, supposed to be following the Nuremberg Code, following the, trials at Nuremberg after World War II. And there's a group of people that are being experimented on again, after the Tuskegee experiments and MK Ultra and atomic radiation experiments, how there have been public apologies by presidents and it's been denounced, and I can't believe that it still goes on, and it just takes so long for the public to catch on, and we really need to help these folks.
I have said for a long time, in the research that I did after the Gulf War, but I have said for a long time that the VA is the reason that they are able to continue these experiments, because they can keep all of these people sort of secluded in one area called the VA system, and then they can continue the experiments from, I don't care if it's Vietnam or the experiments that are going on today, whatever, but these people are out of the view of the general medical community, so they don't really know what kind of experiments are taking place. And that is why they're able to keep the idea that there is no Gulf War illness or Agent Orange was not a problem for so long, is because of the VA hospitals. Now, if they were forced into a TRICARE situation or using regular hospitals, then the game would be up to a certain extent. And this is the way they continue the experimentation and the documentation of all these drugs that were used. The thing about Jacob's Ladder, that story, the movie that came out, the drugs that were used on these people, unsuspecting, without their consent. All right, your situation is not drugs, but it is electronic harassment, you say. Tell us what electronic harassment is, and tell us what electronic harassment is.
Okay, so the body works on bioelectricity. It's a minor amount of energy that's required to interface and fire neurons. And we've been doing research in that, since the end of the World War II. And they had this weapon that interfaces with the human body, and it can render all sensations. So it can render the sensation of touch, hearing, sight, smells. It's just a complete decoding of the brain information, because the computer science has come along, and they've gotten such great funding and research support through the 70s, 80s, and 90s that they've been able to create this weapon that they were looking for during the 50s and 60s. And so electronic harassment is just the influence of the body remotely. And so these folks that are affected will feel, unwanted sensations of touch and hearing. Some will complain of visual information as well.
Okay, you got out of the military.
Like augmented reality for those that are familiar with like the Oculus Rift or the Google Glasses effort.
Okay, you ETS'd. You left the military what year?
In 2010.
2010. When did you consider that you were being electronically harassed or electronically stalked? When did you feel that began?
Well, I took the opposite approach. I purposely tried to get myself in this system because you can't, there's espionage laws. You can't just go grab the documents and start looking through them and talking to people about them. So I wanted to do it in the only legal way I knew how was to try to get myself into the program. And so I used a kind of a civilian approach. I had read a couple of books while I was deciding which career path I wanted to take. And I had learned that some of this technology has made its way into, the corporate world, and folks with some political horsepower and wealthy individuals are able to get this electronic harassment as a sort of service. And it was right there, in black and white as I'm reading these, nonfiction and semi-fictional novels that, this is a problem. And I'd heard a little bit about it growing up, and knew that it was true from my time in the service, and so I tried to get myself into that program. Okay,
now wait a minute. Let me stop you here. Let me stop you because I think I'm a little bit confused. You learned about electronic harassment in the military. You learned about the program?
Yes.
Did you read a protocol? Did you read a program? How did you come across the information on electronic harassment?
It's known information. They compartmentalize this stuff, but at the academy they have a lot of cross-disciplinary. I had an NSA instructor, and a guy that teaches you naval law and stories that he'll tell us going through that course, and then class in ethics and moral philosophy. So you just have exposure to quite a different, people from different warfare areas. And over time, I was just, I had heard about this, initially in high school, and then I, started picking pieces together, and I realized, oh, this is kind of like a decentralized electronic sort of gulag. And it turned out to be true. And so I read from these nonfiction novels that there was a problem there and somebody needed to address it. And then later on, in the military, I read quite a bit more about it.
Okay, we're going to come back after this 4-minute break with our guest, David Voits, and find out what electronic harassment is. He wanted to get into the program, ladies and gentlemen. Did you catch that? We'll be back. Stay tuned. Our guest today, David Voits, serving in the U.S. Navy and then deciding he wanted to become part of this program to find out what it was all about. Now, am I understanding that correctly, David? And we do salute you here at the Power Hour. Am I understanding you correctly that you wanted to join this so that you could be a part of the program?
Yes, this is one of those. It was a situation where you can't just grab the documents and go to the New York Times. So I had to figure out a way to legally figure out what the heck is going on with these folks that are claiming electronic harassment and group intimidation tactics. And so I tried to come up with kind of a clever way that I could get myself into the program, figure out what it's all about, and then escape at the end of it. That's been the tough part, is trying to get people interested in researching the topic and helping the victims, because it's certainly a noble thing. With a little bit of research, people can figure out how this works.
All right. What is electronic harassment? How would any of us recognize if we were being electronically harassed or
well, you don't. Initially, you don't. You figure out when you're allowed to know. That's kind of the insidious. It's a human-machine interface weapon. And again, I'd encourage folks to take a look at the work of Dr. Jack Gallant or folks like Miguel Nicolelis, who's doing hive minding research down there in Duke University, and who's also the one that built the exoskeleton for the quadriplegic, the opening kick of the 2014 World Cup. So electronic harassment is interfaced with the body's central nervous system and providing external input. And so initially, people will notice maybe like a muscle twitch, and then over time it'll become an unwanted sensation. People understand, okay, we can record a sound, and we've been doing that since the 19th century, and you can play it back, and we can talk to someone over the phone from 2 states away, or we can record visual information and, record a movie, and you can play that back at any time. This is the transmission of, all sensory data. So you can transmit touches, audio information, visual information. And so these people are being harassed through an interface into their own nervous system.
All right. So in 2010 you left the military, but then when did you first notice or when did you first become involved in the program of electronic harassment, and what did they call it in the military?
In 2003, I actually started pursuing this, trying to get into the program, asking questions, communicating with people who might have access to it. And then the electronic portion was 2012 for me.
So it was after you had been out of the military then that you were being electronically harassed. Did you keep contact with the military? Did you actually tell them, look, I want to be a guinea pig? I want to be a part of this program?
Yes, I did.
Oh, really?
It's kind of there are people around you, they warn you, and they're like, you know about this program? Like, yeah, I'm trying to get into it. We have to stop it.
Okay, what did they call it again? What did they call it in the military?
Psychological warfare.
Oh, it's part of psychological warfare. Is it under the Department of DARPA? Is it under DARPA?
It's going to be a lot of folks. So they're going to have, guys out of NSA that do this stuff. And there'll be more of the tech end of it and electronic signals and that sort of stuff. And then you've got, of course, guys out of CIA that will do this abroad. And then FBI did this under their program COINTELPRO. A lot of people remember where, they bugged Martin Luther King Jr.'s apartment and then sent him a horrible letter demanding that he commit suicide. And that's kind of what this program is. It's a forced suicide, forced homicide.
Wow.
They're trying to make the target's life horrible.
Can it be used in people like Orlando? That's my question when we come back. We'll be back with our guest today, David Voits, and the Power Hour. Stay tuned. This is Joyce Riley. We'll be back in 3 minutes. We're talking to a gentleman here who has been recommended to me to be on the show by a number of people. David Voits is his name. He joined the military, the Navy, went to the Naval Academy. Then he wanted to be placed in the electronic harassment program. He was placed in that program, and now he's traveling around the country to let people know about the program. So before we get to the Orlando issue, David, why is it that you got involved in the program, you consented to the program to become a guinea pig, and now you're traveling around the country to tell people about it? Are you sorry that you made that decision?
No, the Academy has a pretty robust character development program. So they you have a class in ethics and moral philosophy, and you have a naval law class. Humanities classes, you'll read from Solzhenitsyn and learn what happened in the Gulag in Russia. And just from all those experiences, you just kind of get a strong moral compass. When you're presented with a situation, right or wrong, you're able to look at all the facts and make the right choice. And this is the right choice when you've got, thousands of Americans who are being tortured with a human-machine interface weapon. I mean, it's a pretty easy decision that it has to be stopped. Somebody has to step up and say, this program is not legal. It has to be brought before the Congress, and it needs to be.
So you joined it, but now you're trying to say that it needs to be stopped. So you found out what it was all about through being in the program yourself.
I knew a few things, but as an engineer, you go right down to the equipment problem or the system problem or admin problem, and you critique. You observe and look at the information and look at the trends, and you critique the information. This is what I did in this situation. I got into the program. I looked at all the literature on the topic. There's something like 50 books that I found on this topic. I've read maybe 12, and then I recommend 5 or 6 to people that they can read in an afternoon or two and understand.
Okay, what are some of those books? What are some of those books that people might want to read?
To understand this program, there's 4 or 5 books in this topic. I'd start with Dr. Robert Duncan's How to Tame a Demon, and he's interviewed 1,000 or so of the victims, and he's boiled it down to 80 or 90 pages of what are the most commonly asked questions by the people that are in this non-consensual experiment. To read in a couple hours. The second one is Guinea Pigs by Dr. John Hall. He's a doctor out of San Antonio that come across this program as well, and he's done I think a decade worth of outreach trying to let people know, hey, here we go again. Mm-hmm. And then I go back to Dr. Robert Duncan. He's more of a technical manual on this topic called Project Soulcatcher that details the science behind this technology. And then for a novelist approach, I'd check out 1996 by Gloria Naylor. And then there are 4 research scientists that are doing work with this technology in an unclassified setting that you can get on YouTube, look at their work, and understand how this program works. The first being Jack Gallant out of University of California at Berkeley. If you go on the internet and search Jack.
Okay, is that spelled Gallant? Gallant?
Gallant, Jack Gallant.
Okay.
And if you type in mind reading, functional MRI, in 20 minutes he can explain how the passive portion of the program works. Then I'd look at Miguel Nicolelis' work out of Duke University. He does hive mind research. He published in Nature Neuroscience last fall, showing how this hive mind technology works with rhesus monkeys and rats. And then you can kind of expound that if you look at Robert Duncan's work, he's a guy that has multiple degrees, came out of the CIA, and is telling people that, here's the military application of this technology.
Okay, now let me ask you. Okay, that's a lot to start with there. I appreciate all that good information. Mm-hmm. But why is it that you're not afraid now? You're traveling around the country. You're walking across the country. You've got a GoFundMe account, which I want you all to consider donating to. But you're doing this because you want the program stopped. Why are you not afraid that they might just kill you or do away with you at a time when you're trying to tell how bad this program is?
Well, fear doesn't come into it. This is an issue. You're a military officer. You learn from, World War I, where, you're doing trench warfare. They blow the whistle, and then sometimes that's it. That's the last time you get out of that trench. Or, World War II, the lives lost in that. I mean, it's just your function in society. You're there to protect the people. And so fear doesn't really become part of it. You just have a job
I'll tell you what,
try to do the best you can.
Well, I appreciate that, but if I were being slammed by electronic harassment, I was an Air Force officer, I can assure you I'd be scared if all this stuff is coming at you. And that's what we need to get to in just a second. But the question I ask you regarding could it be done could a killer be created by this?
Yes, and it has.
By this equipment?
And everyone in America has seen it. You've seen a couple of I get scolded for this whenever I try to talk about it, because this group calling themselves targeted individuals, some of them don't like it when you talk about this, but it needs to be said. There's evidence that a couple of these shooters were in the program, and not only knew they were in it, and they were trying to draw attention to this issue, because every time, there was just no outlet. No one would talk to them, and they would get dismissed whenever they tried to discuss this horrible crime.
Was one of them the Navy shooter in Maryland?
What's that?
Was it one of them the Navy shooter in Maryland?
Yes, the Navy shooter, and then the shooter at Florida State University. And then I would also, from what I've seen, there's a gal up in Toronto that's on trial for stabbing another girl I don't know how to pronounce the name. I think it's Rohini Basir. But I looked at what she wrote, and it looks like she's probably in this program as well.
Now, how can you tell? How can you tell? I'll tell you what, maybe Justin needs to bring my volume up a little bit, because I think we're kind of stepping on each other. How can you tell from somebody's writings or what they say if they've possibly been involved in this program?
Okay, so it's a human-machine interface weapon. If they start talking about, physical sensations, and then there's a psychological warfare portion to this. So they try to confuse these people, and it's one of like 5 to 10 storylines that they'll follow to get people into they want them fighting with their neighbor, they want them fighting with their family, or mad at the government, that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the big thing is, like in the Navy Yard shooter, he wrote on his weapon, "This is my, frequency weapon," or something. He etched it on his weapon so that people would know, like, this is why I'm doing it. I'm being tortured. I'm in this program. They're testing this human-machine interface weapon. And it literally is. It's 20, just like a Wi-Fi signal or a GPS signal. This program's worldwide. You can't escape it. So it's 24/7. If you're identified as a potential outcome, they ramp it up. You can be tortured 24/7 anywhere in the world. You cannot escape it.
Now, I want to open up the phone lines. Okay, there are some people that want to talk to you, I know, so give us a call at 855-995-6923, 855-995-6923. Now, if you had your choice today that you could tell them or write a letter to them or file a lawsuit or whatever it would take to say, I want to be out of this program, would you do it?
Sure. That's the ultimate goal. With the Tuskegee experiment, they were easy to identify. They were able to say, okay, these are the people that are in the program. I would love to be able to get the word out and then get all the targets rounded up and then get them some basic coping mechanisms and then do the standard, activism that people do on any topic. And like with the smoking or asbestos, get them some sort of legal repercussion for this horrible crime that's been committed against.
Right. So we know that there have been a number of experiments the government has done under COINTELPRO and under MKUltra, et cetera. There have been a number of experiments. This is just one of them. But I think people would be interested in knowing what kind of equipment, what the equipment is called, how this affects you on a daily basis. How many times are you targeted per day? And what has this done to your life? Let's start with what kind of equipment is used?
The only people that are going to know exactly what equipment are the ones that are trained on it. So this is one of those things that unless you were hired on in this program and you've had 3 years if you're an operator, or if you were a scientist and developed it and you were took 10 years with the R&D group, those are the only people that are going to know exactly what the technology is called.
Okay.
And we're trying to get to the point where we can get a legal opinion that will say, if you worked on this, come forward because you're protected. The national security button doesn't work in this situation because people are being tortured with it. That comes first.
Okay. Is this part of the voice to skull? Is this part of the voice to skull technology? Yeah,
and there are three or four technologies that I know of. One of them being ultrasonic heterodyning, which it's like the audio spotlight. If you research, if you Google audio spotlight, that's what that technology is. There's one called bone conduction. One of the major news outlets published on that last fall as a quote unquote new discovery. You can find that in the kind of like the special warfare books where some of the guys that wrote books in the 90s, they've had that since at least the 80s and 70s where they were using in special warfare and spycraft. And then the other one is called the microwave hearing effect, or the Frey effect. And that one's a remote way of communicating with a person using differential spatial effects based on heating and cooling.
Okay, how does this impact your life? What does this do to you on a daily basis?
So, say for the folks that get the audio stuff, they can just talk to them all day. It'd be as if you get someone on the cell phone and you can never turn it off. They can just talk them to their desk, basically. Or the people that get the tactile stuff, it's the most horrific, disgusting stuff imaginable. If you read through Dianne Feinstein's report on the torture tactics at the beginning of the War on Terror, and they've had some more information released, that's what it is. It's a trauma-based torture program.
Okay,
so and where are literally being tortured.
Where do they train these people to do this, or where were you involved in the program?
It's going to be guys that work in like special warfare, psychological warfare, interrogations, and they're going to select certain people that are going to be willing to do this or take some bucks and be quiet or have the fear in them, having known what happens to folks in this program. And, they'll probably have a military career or maybe a, CIA, NSA career. And then they'll move them into a contractor position. And those are going to be the people who do some of the oversight. And then they hire out folks locally to help with organized intimidation and community-based stalking.
Okay, but you said also that when I asked you at the bottom of the hour, before the bottom of the hour break about Orlando, so someone could have been trained like this. Would he normally have a military background?
In this situation, I don't know anything. I haven't heard any information that would suggest he was in this program. All I know about is the Navy Yard and the Florida State shooter. But if they're trying to make a shooter, I guess it helps that they have some firearms training. But it's just a simple, they're torturing this person, And if they take, 10,000 people and they torture 10,000 of them, they'll probably get a handful of them that, will do anything to make it stop. And that's kind of the folks that they'll use whatever programs they're developing.
Okay, let me go to Marion in Baltimore. Marion in Baltimore, you're on the air with our guest today, David Voigt. Go ahead, please.
Yes, David, I've been a victim of this electronic harassment, this torture for the last 6 or 7 years. And there's all kinds of things they can do with it. They can burn you. They can sting you. They can give you massive headaches. They can make you go to the bathroom. Just so many different ways.
One thing we haven't mentioned, how about sleep deprivation? Was that part of your program, sleep deprivation?
Yes, they can cause you to stay awake, or they can give you a massive headache. There's just so many.
I've heard, a lot of people, they just want to go to bed. It's just one of those things. They just want to go in their room, go to bed, and kind of shut off the world. And that's kind of one of the worst places you can be in this program, because you're just a stationary target.
Okay, Marion, let me thank you very much for the phone call, because hearing from other people that are having the same situation, I probably heard from 25 people that have contacted me in the past, and some of the stories are really strange. Okay. Some of the people are a little bit strange. And sometimes I wonder how many of these people have been involved in actually being targeted, and how many people in the country do you think are being targeted? I got to move on, Marion. Thank you for the phone call. I'm going to go. Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to David after this break to find out how many people he thinks are involved in this program, and how can we support him on this trek across the United States. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Joyce Riley in the Power Hour. David Voigt is our guest. Final segment of the Power Hour. I'd like to have David back again on the program, because there's so much that we want to ask him and that you want to ask him. I hope we have time to get to everybody here. First of all, real quick, easy answer. How many people do you think are involved in this program, David?
To be honest, I have no way of knowing. I rely on the people who have done surveys of the group in the past, and they say a conservative estimate. One of them says a conservative estimate is 4,000 to 10,000 people. Another one, suggested it's something more like 100,000.
Wow.
For us, for victims, it's just something that's unknowable. We're going to need someone that worked in this program to give us a little bit more information.
Okay, let's go to Cecil in Tennessee. Cecil, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, with David Voigt.
Hi, Joyce. I think
there.
There's something. Thank you. I think there's something to the electronic warfare aspect against individuals, but Mr. Voigt the answer was non-responsive to the locations, the military campus or other training facility. And I wonder if Mr. Voigt might be able to specifically tell us where these places were. I myself had taught at Revere Hall at Fort Devens years ago, and also at Huachuca in Arizona, the home of intelligence and in NSA and electronic warfare subjects. I wonder if you might tell us specifically where. Thank you.
So my answer, I would look at, there's a guy named Colin Ross that did research on the MK Ultra program.
Yeah, we've had him on before.
And, I would say it's going to follow the same format. It's going to be a distributed thing where you're going to have, small groups in various institutions, and they're not going to know the full scope of this issue. And then you're going to have cutout organizations that provide funding to the various groups that do this. So it's geographically, I think it's going to be isolated. It's going to be a regional thing, a handful in each sort of region.
Go ahead, Cecil.
Where were you trained at, Mr. Voigt? Specifically, where you were at. Where were you at?
Naval Academy, and then on the destroyer Benfold out of San Diego.
So you were already in the electronic warfare program at the Naval Academy. Is that what you're saying? Not
electronic warfare, but my control systems engineering concentration was in signals. So I, a little bit of work with analog digital signal analysis.
Okay, but when did you volunteer? When did you volunteer to be a guinea pig? What year?
I started working on it in 2003.
Okay, when you entered into the military. No, that's not when you entered into the military.
No, 97. I came in 97.
Okay, where were you in 2003? Where were you stationed?
I was at the Naval Academy.
Okay, so there's our answer. All right, thank you very much, Cecil. Let's go to Dennis in Virginia. Dennis in Virginia, you're on the air. Final call with our guest today, David Voigt. Go ahead, please. Quickly, Dennis.
Yes, David. The only thing I can tell you is that you're only scratching the surface, because we're talking about not only electronic harassment, we're talking about electronic mind control, where they can implant thoughts into your own head that override.
Yes, electronic harassment is kind of a misnomer. It's the interface of human beings and machines. That's where the technology is. It's a bidirectional human-machine interface.
Okay, I don't have very much time, so I'm just going to read a couple of books.
We're out of time. Unfortunately, we'll have to do this program again, and I hope you're paying. You can listen, Dennis, when we do it again, because I want to have David back on. There's too much information here. I want you to go to the guest section, find out how to support him on his GoFundMe page around the country. He wants to tell the world about this. Let's support him. He comes from some really good, respectable people, is how I found out about him, ladies and gentlemen. You all have a blessed day, and I hope it's better for you, David. David Voigt, thank you for joining us in the Power Hour. Awesome show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
To think about. Absolutely. We want to have him definitely, Catherine, back on again. Have a blessed day. We'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, bless you all. It's all about the truth, and some of it's pretty uncomfortable. We'll see you tomorrow. We love you at the Power Hour.
A former naval officer and graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, David Voigt, is voyaging across America from Delaware to California along the American Discovery Trail and U.S. Highway 50 to raise awareness for a growing group of victims, including men, women, and children being assaulted with electronic weapons. He started his journey in May and plans to take several months to complete the journey, educating the community wherever he goes while carrying a portable backlit billboard capable of scrolling text messages. I've got David on the line with us now. What a valiant effort, David. Where are you now?
Hey, George, I'm in a place called Gray Summit, Missouri. It's just a little bit west of St. Louis.
I know it well. Very close. And, of course, 9 years in the Navy as well, so thank you for serving. Now, tell me a little bit. How did this all start? How did you decide you wanted to raise awareness to this kind of electronic assaults?
Well, like you said, I'm a former naval officer, graduate of the United States Naval Academy. I have a degree in control systems engineering. I worked in electronics warfare and nuclear engineering jobs as a surface warfare officer. And while I was in the service, I found out there is an ongoing, non-consensual human experiment, and it's testing a human-machine interface weapons system. So kind of in practical terms, it's the same sort of technology that's used with the modern prosthetic limbs. So for somebody that has no background in this type of technology, if you go to TED.com, they have these TED Talks that stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. 10 to 12 minutes, you can get some information about a topic you've never heard about. And if you go to TED.com and search technology that can hack the brain, there's 6 TED Talks in a playlist that within 1 hour you can get an understanding of exactly how this weapon systems work.
This is frightening, David. It's frightening.
It is. It's absolutely amazing in that, with before the 2014 World Cup, they were able to get a guy that had been in as a paraplegic, was in a motorcycle accident. They built him an exoskeleton and were able to, through brain decoding, allow him to, through thought alone, stand up and kick the opening kick of the World Cup.
Unbelievable.
But on the opposite side of the spectrum, there's a group of people that are in a non-consensual experiment. They're calling themselves targeted individuals, and they are literally guinea pigs testing this technology.
David, there are hundreds of thousands of individuals in the United States that apparently may be subjected to this. How long has it been going on, in your opinion?
At least since World War II, they started the experimentation. There was an experiment called Project Chatter. It was a Navy experiment. And then they moved on to names like Artichoke and Bluebird. And then they went on into the MK Ultra program that ran for a number of years. And then during the 70s, there was a congressional hearing on this topic specifically, and they sort of revealed some of the things that they were looking into. They said they stopped the experimentation, but it didn't. It just continued, and it's involved into what these targeted individuals are experiencing, which is kind of a remote interface with the bioelectrical system of a human being, you know, without their consent, without ever telling them that they're part of an experiment. And it's really topical now because there has been now 5 major shootings related to, you know, the people that are part of this test bed, the most recent one being the Baton Rouge shooting, where the New York Times, CNN, and the Kansas City Star have all reported that shooter was part of this, you know, it's self-identified
part of this
as
program.
a targeted individual.
So you're almost halfway there. You're from Delaware to California. Are you walking, taking a motorcycle? What are you doing?
I'm walking. I have I've got my Beagle with me. I've got a backpack.
You've become Forrest Gump almost.
It is, you know, and that's, you know, like people have, you know, commented on that, and you know, that'd be great if we had people that kind of followed this cross-country walk. And you know, this is you know, it's a new kind of weapon system that needs to be monitored in the same way that we monitor, you know, like atomic, you know, we have an International Atomic Energy Commission and atomic weapons inspectors. That we need to have an international agency that monitors neuroweapons. It needs to be public knowledge that this is a reality now. You can go to these TED Talks and look at that. You can look at what Jack Gallant has published out of his neuroscience lab there at the University of California at Berkeley. And, you know, people can just search that and see how they do, you know, basically mind reading. If you search Jack Gallant, functional MRI, mind reading, University of California at Berkeley, in YouTube, you'll come away with a few YouTube videos that explain exactly how that's done.
Well, we're going to follow your progress. Yep. And when do you expect to get to California, David, at this
I've got
pace?
about 90 more days of hiking, and it'd take me at least until Christmas to finish that up without any break.
All right. And are you getting media coverage along the way?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're hitting all the small town newspapers and radio stations, trying to create a historical record that, you know, there were people here in this time frame, 2016, that knew about this crime, that knew that this was happening. And they were trying to do everything they could do to bring it to the public.
Okay, well, we've got a link on our Twitter, to your Twitter, Facebook, and you have a GoFundMe page. Be safe, keep walking, and we will periodically check in with you as we reach this 90-day, right around Election Day almost.
Oh, yeah.
All right, David, be safe. That's David Voits, an incredible story, a story that we have covered on Coast to Coast for years now about electronic assaults. And a lot of people say, nah, come on, that's not happening. Here's a former naval officer, a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, who says it is happening, and he wants to tell the whole planet about it. So he's walking from Delaware to California, and as he said, he's in Missouri right now, so he's halfway there. What an amazing story. This story came to my attention. A friend of mine who's a great piano player here in the St. Louis area, Kurt Landis, he called me and he said, you've got to cover this guy. So I checked into it and got Tom and Lisa on it, and here we go. So we will periodically check in with the exploits of David Voits as he walks across the country.